Hi everybody, we're back, and I've got a really interesting one that Stephen's thrown my way, and he's called it You versus You. What the hell do you mean by that?
Great subject matter. So one of the things I get asked quite a lot, or people kind of say when they're talking to me, is I'm not as good as this person. I don't think I work as well as this person. I'm a bad mother, I'm a bad father because my friend does these things and I don't do them. And You versus You is really talking about you're unique for a reason. Your DNA is unique to you. The way you do things is different to someone else. But the reality is the person that you're really working against is yourself. And when you really talk to people about this and you sort of, deliver that, it gets them to start thinking differently about how they see things. And this is probably one of the scary things that social media and the whole internet world has sort of really fired in our faces, is that we're constantly comparing ourselves to someone else. We're constantly comparing ourselves to sound bites and putting more pressure on ourselves. And why I talk about it so much is because it becomes an issue, because what actually happens is mentally it starts to affect the way that you live your life because you're comparing yourself to someone else. And what I always say to people, is get your phone, reverse the camera, look at the person on that, take the photograph, remember that day, and whenever you're having a scary moment or you're comparing yourself to someone else, look at the phone and look at that picture of yourself. It's about you. So it's you versus you. And I do think that mindset can really help you be more positive, because what's actually happening is you're thinking negative thoughts because you're comparing yourself to someone else. So that's what I mean by You versus You, Oliver. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I love that because it's something that I've talked about. I've done a few videos on, speak to my clients about, and it's a little possibly controversial, but I honestly don't care. And it's the phrase I use is, if someone has to say it, then it probably isn't so. I don't go as far as say it definitely isn't so, but it probably isn't so. Because if someone is out there telling you how great they are, putting it out there, showing how wonderful everything is, then it's not natural. 99 times out of 100 anyway, it's forced and it's false. And, we talk about it when you see The Perfect Family and then they put some great posts out there because I know it's someone's birthday or something along those lines. And then somebody says, yeah, but I know they got trouble at the minute, or I know that they nearly got divorced last year, or all this sort of stuff comes out. And you're like, well, hang on a minute. So why are we posting that? And it's because it's the way they want to be portrayed. So not only are we falling victims of looking at other people and thinking they're better than us, we're also falling foul of their tricks, as it were, because they're trying to present this different reality, which is very easy to do on social media in particular. And linked to that, the thing that I've said is, I know every generation feels like it's going through a different time, but there has never been the access to information overload like what we've had right now since social media and the internet really took hold. So absolutely, however you dress it up, whether it's You versus You, whether it's other people's way that they're presenting themselves, or it's just your own lack of self-confidence, we are definitely in control of it. And that's the thing that is the struggle, really, to help people understand that how they choose to see the things happening to them externally is their own choice. And it's quite often hard because I often get a bit of pushback on this. But ultimately, how we choose to think about a situation is an internal choice. No matter how much we think the external forces are impacting us, that's all made up in our heads because it's how we've chosen to see it. And when that penny starts to drop, it's amazing again, isn't it? It's just, again, how lucky are we to watch that moment when somebody's like, and with that one, it's not necessarily an instant one for me. It takes a little bit of back and forth, maybe more than one session, but seeing how they respond to that. So absolutely, now I get what you mean by You versus You.
No, great. And the word that you use there is confidence. And I believe it's a confidence stripper when you're constantly comparing yourself to others. And don't get this the wrong way round. This is not about not being competitive. Because you can be competitive, But it's about saying, right, today I did 10 press ups. So tomorrow I'm going to do 12 press ups. It's not about saying, well, so and so did 24 press ups, so I need to go one better than that. It's about you really looking at yourself and making those small gains for yourself to move yourself better, or move yourself forward. You might be able to do 24 press ups further down the line, but it's not about you competing with someone else. And it's not about you not having a competitive nature, because you could look at this and go, well, I want to be competitive. It's not about not being competitive. It's just about comparing yourself to others. It really just strips your confidence. And when your confidence then starts to reduce, that's when the issues come, because then you start to second guess yourself. Then you start to, the things that were really easy to do become more complicated. You start over-analyzing, you start overthinking, and all of these things start to make you lose your confidence. And once the confidence starts to strip back, it's very scary how quickly that confidence demises. And then, you really then start to have a lot more issues. So I'm a great believer that you're only in competition with yourself. And it is about you versus you rather than you versus everyone else. And, I hope who's ever listening at this now, that really resonates with them, and they really get that.
Absolutely, because it's just that realizing that you talked about the press ups, for example, and someone might be smashing it doing 24, twice as many as you. But if you sustain that over a period of time, doing the 10 and then the 12 and then the 14, then the 16, you could soon be surpassing that anyway. So it's the quick fix thing as well that I possibly didn't touch on, that's come with social media and the internet. We want everything instantly. And of course, I get that. I still do. I'm not going to suggest I've suddenly developed perfect patience. Blimey, I support Norwich City. I have to have the patience of a blooming saint at the moment. At the particular time this is recorded, it's not going well, and we've got a World Cup break, and it's the best thing that's happened because I'm 4 weeks away from Carrow Road. It's wonderful. So I don't have have patience all the time, but at the same time, that's a really good thing to bring up, because it's so easy, and I see so many people walk away from a football ground miserable because the team's lost, and it hangs with them for the rest of the day, for the next week or something like that. And you're like, wow, how, I get it, it's important to you. I'm not going to try and belittle that, because for some people it's a massive part of life. But aren't you lucky that you're able to do that? Isn't it an amazing experience that you can have this connection with them? It's so easy to change that into a positive. I'm not expecting anybody who's watching their team to lose to feel instantly great about it, but to let it hang with you for so long is something you're just choosing to do. Whereas I see some people who can just walk away and just be okay with it within no time at all. They'll have a little chat, hug it out or whatever it might be, or have a little rant. 5-10 minutes later, they're getting on with their day, which is very much how I like to be now. But in the early days, of supporting a sports team, I'd have the same problem where it just hang with me like a cloud over my head. And that's ridiculous, because it's an external force. I know it's a silly one because it's sport, but I bet there's a lot of people out there that it resonates with. Or maybe their own sporting performance. Again, something bad's happened. Yeah, that's terrible, but it's gone. Fact of life. I think we've talked about this before. One of the things that I question about therapy, and I would never dismiss it in any way, shape or form, but my fears I have for people that work with me around it is that it's reflecting backwards. And that's fine, but what do we do about that? Because if all we're doing is working out why we are where we are now, what are we going to do about where we move forward? And a lot of people who've been through therapy who come to me have spent a lot of time recognising what's wrong with them, why they've fallen where they are, what the struggles are. But they don't seem to be being given a strategy or a pathway forward to move away from that. So they just keep reflecting. I don't know, is it something that you can resonate with?
Absolutely, Oliver. And, what you're talking about there again, it's the you versus you is about you moving forward. And, I often say the difference between mentoring and, anyone that works in the profession where they have their doctorate and they're trying to help you from a psychological perspective. What they do is they open up your past. and you spend a lot of time in the past. And I think the beautiful thing about what we do is we're able to, yes, we listen to the past and we understand it, because that part of your past makes you who you are. But we're about what you do going forward. And the you versus you is about looking at yourself and saying, right, where do I want to be, and how am I going to get there? And what are the things that I need to do, and who do I need to surround myself with to get there? But it's still about you versus you. It's you looking at yourself and saying, right, where am I going to go on this journey? And it is so easy for outside influences for you to compare. And you know, the you versus you also moves into what you're talking about, which is, you know, something's happened and that's affecting me. But the reality is, let's put it into perspective. You know, you're okay. You know, it's not the end of the world that your team's lost. You know, there's more things in life, and the you versus you really it is about using yourself as a focal point, and using where you ended yesterday, and starting from that position, and then moving yourself forward. And I do think it's probably I would actually put this, Oliver, right up there as one of the most important things as coaches, as mentors, that we can help an individual with, is to get them to understand it's about you versus you, and it's not you versus someone else. It's not you versus the world. It's not you versus your football team. It's you. And I do think it really hits home for me, because what happens, it leads to other things. It leads to the negativity. It leads to more issues. It leads to low self-esteem. I was having a conversation with one of my clients yesterday, where she had 100% basically believed that she was a bad person on everything she did, because she was thinking about where she was maybe 10, 15 years ago. She was thinking about where some of her friendship group are now, and thinking, I am just bad. I am just not good enough. And, you know, I spent, near on 2 hours really, understanding that and talking about it. And by the end of the session, she definitely realised, hold on a minute, why am I comparing myself to everyone else when their circumstances are totally different? She had 2 children, but she was comparing herself to someone that had no children. And they had more free time, so they could do some of the things that she wasn't doing. So I do think this you versus you is a real biggie. I think it's something that will be massive for 2023. I do believe that in the roles that we do, Oliver, I think it's going to be a really key element on getting people not to, think about what other people do, and to think more about it's me versus me.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the thing that's really important there as well. If it's maybe social media where you're seeing the stuff, is I'm not saying you have to come off it. I would recommend it. I've done a few videos and podcasts in the past about having a social media detox, because it's surprisingly enjoyable. But I am saying that you don't have to follow the same people. Be careful of the people you have in your world. So I'm a big fan of the book The Slight Edge. I think is in my background on here. And one of the things that we talk about is there's about 7 things you can do in your life to make life straightforward. And one of the things they talk about is having yourself surrounded by the right people. And what we don't realise, and I think it's because it is still so new, really, when you think about it, we don't know how to conduct ourselves in that environment. So we then end up surrounding ourselves with far too many people who are not helping us in any way, shape or form, but we think they are, or we feel that we must be checking them out because they're a bad person, and we need to be, oh no, this is outrageous. There's a former president in the United States that a lot of people have a lot of views on, and they don't like what he has to say. So why are you listening? Why are you engaging with it? Why are you allowing yourself to get angry? I accept these people need to be accountable, but at the same, does it need to be you? If it's making you feel so bad, so angry, so instantly enraged, I must not have the news on anymore. My wife knows that if I come into the room, we just turn it off, because I'm immediately set off by something that, I don't know, Kay Burley said, or somebody like that will say something really stupid and fear-inducing, and I just go, this is what I'm talking about. So my wife's now done with that. No news when Oliver's in the room, because he can't handle it. That's the honest truth of it. He can't handle it. So I know that I will remove myself from it. Simple as that. And, you know, it sounds like there's this whole sort of FOMO, isn't there? Fear of missing out thing that goes on. Are you really missing out, though? That's the question I'd want to ask people, because it's not just social media, but I know that's where you in a previous video talked about 80-20, and I am confident that's where 80% of the stress comes from. Online, social media, and things that are very easy to access. So just step away from it. Maybe not a cold turkey detox. I think that might be a bit stressful, but you know, if someone's getting on your nerves, mute them, block them, unfollow them, try it. You know, it seems a ridiculously simple thing to do, but do it and see how you feel. You know, what do you think? Am I a bit too radical?
No, not at all. I think you're absolutely right. And the word I'll use is environment. And I think sometimes the way in which we can help ourselves be more positive and help ourselves sort of think about our mindset sometimes is to change environment, is to pick yourself up and move yourself. Because what you surround yourself with has a huge impact on how you feel. And don't be surprised, guys. Do not be surprised if you're listening to this now and you're thinking, God, that really resonates with me. Don't be surprised if you make some decisions tomorrow around changing your environment. Don't be surprised if it has a huge impact on the way that you feel. And it's like Oliver says, you know, if being on social media constantly is having an adverse effect on you, then limit yourself. Don't do it. Have a week off. So many of my clients have had time out of social media, and they all say the same thing. I feel better about myself. I feel more confident. I can think better. You know, I used to say many years ago that I didn't really believe in, you know, your stars and reading your scope for the day, because I'm a firm believer that whatever you read, you somehow subconsciously try and make that happen. And this is a little bit like that, where actually what happens is, because you're receiving all this information, you then believe it. And it's like, who said that's true? Who said that what you've just read on social media is true? What you've just read is, for the 3 minutes of that person's day, that happened. But what about all the other minutes of that day? And this is why I do think sometimes we've got to think about the environment that we're in, and we have to think about sometimes moving ourselves out of that environment into another environment and the impact that will have on you. And, you know, think about this one moment. If you go to a comedy evening and you have fun and enjoy yourself, that is because you've placed yourself in an environment of fun. So that's impacted the way that you feel. And it's as simple as that. I personally feel, Oliver, that life is actually really quite simple. I really believe that. I think that as human beings, we make it more complicated by what we do and where we position ourselves. I actually think if you think about it in the purest form and the most basic form, what we're actually saying is, if something doesn't feel right, if something doesn't make you feel right, then remove it or change location. It's that, and it really is that simple. I don't think it's complicated. I really do think. Yes, I know you build relationships with people. Yes, I know that you sometimes, you know, some people can be like a drug and you just can't get enough of them, so you keep going back. But you have the choice. And the word that Oliver used earlier was the word control. We have the control. We can actually do what we think is right for ourselves, but we have to make that choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the best place to end the video, really, there, because it is in your control. As always, the aim here is to start the conversation. So wherever you're watching this, Steve and I would love to hear from you. You can either comment publicly, or you can contact us privately. All our information will be available. Challenge us. Some of the stuff we said there is on the line of controversial. It's certainly how we see things. We've certainly, as you said, we've seen clients who feel the same. So I hope again that's been useful. There's a couple more episodes in the pipeline, so I'm looking forward to getting those out. But that's it from me. Is there anything you want to add as a final thing, Stephen, before we end the record?
Yeah, I'd just like to add, Oliver, on that point. You have the control, and I'm staring down the barrel now. You have the control, so take it.
Love that. Perfect. Right. We'll end it there, guys, and we'll see you in the next episode.